Hello, Tech Pros, episode 186. Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to be back on day 4 of our 7-day course that will help put your career into hyperdrive. Now, if you're not familiar with the format of this show, normally we have a featured guest join us to talk about motivation, productivity, leadership, technology here on Technology Thursday, and then people and communication on Friday, Saturday, entrepreneurship, Sunday being unplugged. And every day of the week, we have a different guest talking about their views on each of those subjects. But this week is a very special week because it is our first signature series week. And what I mean by that is a week dedicated to a single particular topic. And the topic of this week is career development. Now, I was brought up as a software developer, and I did really well at the beginning of my career. And then after about 4 or 5 years, I plateaued. And I got to the point where I just wasn't making any headway. I wasn't making any headway because I kept doing the same things over and over and over, which worked at the beginning when I was a young kid just out of college age and just entering into the business world, entering into my craft as a software developer. But it didn't have the impact over the long term that I thought it was going to have. Doing the same thing over and over and over didn't lead to bigger and bigger results. It led to kind of a tapering of my growth. And so I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately, that there's not just the same old stuff in your career. To make a big difference and to make your career really start moving forward again at a fast pace, that you got to shake things up and you got to learn how to approach things from a different perspective. And so that's what this week is all about. That's what this course is all about, this free 7-day course, which if you're just tuning in, you can get access to all 7 days of this career development training, as well as the action items, the key takeaways, and the homework for each day of the week by visiting hellotechpros.com/career. That's hellotechpros.com/career. Sign up for that, and then you'll get absolutely for free links to all 7 of the episodes so that you can go through these MP3s at your own pace. You can listen to them over and over again, as well as get all the key takeaways, the call to actions, and the homework for each specific episode. Because you know what? It's not just about hearing the material. It's not just about listening to my stories and my views. It's also 100% about taking action. There's a huge difference in people's careers between the people who are passive and just allow things to happen to them and the people who are active and proactive and action takers and go forward and implement changes and experiment with them and see what works and doesn't work. And those action takers are the ones that are going to see big, big results. And if you follow these, if you follow along with the homework, if you follow along with the action items that I'm going to be giving out here, then you're going to see your career launch into hyperdrive like the Millennium Falcon. Once R2-D2 gets it fixed, man, it's going to launch off. So if you're just tuning in and you missed yesterday's episode, or if you're back again, hello, welcome back here on Technology Thursday. What we talked about yesterday on Leadership Wednesday, I told you about the story in my life, in my career, where I was on this cusp of, I started to get really, really productive as an individual contributor, and I wanted to have a bigger impact on the team, and I was kind of one of the most senior people around, and I don't mean senior meaning smarter or meaning having a more important title or having seniority over people. What I mean is that I'd been there longer. We had prior a lot of turnover. We'd have a little bit of layoffs. We'd have a lot of people leave the organization and go find opportunities outside of that company. And at this period, I saw a lot of new people come in and join the team. and they were brilliant and they were wonderful, and it was an awesome time to be alive. But unfortunately, man, we just had a lot of legacy issues that I knew because I had kind of experienced them and I'd been there as they were being developed or as they were not being handled earlier in my tenure there. And all of these new folks coming in were learning all the problems that we had. Unfortunately, the management team was so busy trying to restructure the whole department. They were trying to get in touch, because many of our managers actually were new to the company as well, trying to get in touch with what the customers wanted and what were the most important priority things that were going on, and taking care of all of the commitments that were made prior by other managers and other leaders in the company that had left the company. They're trying to get a hold of that. And meanwhile, I knew what was going on from the line level perspective in the trenches. I knew all the dirt. Like, if you want to know how the sausage is made, whew, man, be careful about going into the sausage factory. I knew all the ugly, gooey, dirty things that were happening in that sausage factory of our software development team. And, it worked. We were cranking out some of our products. We were helping some of our customers, but just not at the level that we were capable of as a team. And so I saw a lot of opportunities around to make improvements, but struggling with social anxiety and struggling with the fact that I wasn't a leader, like I wasn't a supervisor or manager in the company. I had no authority. It took a lot of bravery, and it took a lot of stepping outside of my comfort zone to talk to both the individual contributors, the other peers on my team, about what was going on and get their views on the subjects, and then take those findings across the entire team, take them up to my boss, take them up to the management team, and say, hey, here's some opportunities that we have that the team could be working on to make things better. And we feel that if we were giving just 10% of our time or 20% of our time across the week or across a few months on some of these internally facing projects, like our code repositories and our coding standards and our standard operating procedures and our reusable patterns and practices, and just the way that we interact with the customers on projects and on maintenance issues, that we could have a bigger impact over a longer period of time. And we wouldn't spend so much time like trying to reinvent the wheel every single week or every single production ticket or every single project, doing the same thing over and over and over. There's a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted space here. So in yesterday's episode, we walked through how to go through that process and put some of that stuff in place. And it was awesome. We got so much productivity out of the team, and it really taught me a lot about learning how to be a leader, even though you don't necessarily have the authority. You don't necessarily have the title of a leader or a manager or a supervisor or a director or a CTO or whatever titles that many people in your organization may have. You can still be a leader, and by that I mean you can gather people together and talk to them about the issues that are going on in life or in work, and have that community come together, voice their opinions, and then that leader, you know what they're doing? Is they're not telling people what to do. They're asking people for their opinions, and they're surfacing those opinions and listing them out and getting them documented, and then taking them to the authority figures to request permission to actually work on them. And so in yesterday's episode, we talked all about that. Again, if you missed that episode, or if you want to catch up, or if you want to get the action items and the homework from yesterday's episode, go to hellotechpros.com/career. At the end of that episode, we talked about, it was such an amazing time. We got so much stuff done. We started getting a lot of stuff done, but unfortunately, we became the victim of our own success in some circumstances, and that was we started inheriting a ton of tools across the board. We started inheriting and building a ton of technology across the board. And luckily, we had some processes in order to account for it. But I've talked to so many different people across different companies, both entrepreneurs, managers and directors, and individual contributors in technology positions at different companies. And there's a lot of problems that come from really being proactive, really being productive, and getting a lot of work done. And unfortunately, that means sometimes we end up collecting a lot of debt. And by debt, I mean technology debt. I mean gadget debt. I mean we get surrounded by a whole bunch of stuff that's in our business that may not be adding the most value over the long term that it should be doing. So let me get specific on some of the problems that I'm talking about here. What do I mean by this debt? Well, have you ever been in a situation where you didn't know exactly what technology to choose? Like there were a lot of options, but you didn't know which thing to choose? Or was there ever a time when you found a solution, an awesome solution, and you were so excited about implementing it, but you didn't know exactly which problem you could apply the solution to? I know I've done that 100 times. Like I find the latest technology thing, I find the latest gadget, I find the latest API. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's amazing. I can't wait to implement it. Now, what project can I implement this thing on? How about this? Oh God, I'm so guilty of this shiny object syndrome. I have been unfortunately blessed with big eyeballs that can spot shiny objects from a million miles away, and I get so distracted so many times. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that get distracted by shiny object syndrome and want to bounce from the latest technology to the latest and the latest. Or we're kind of like Batman, and we want to collect all the gadgets and put them in our Batman utility belt because someday you never know when you might need them. How about this? Have you ever been oversold by a salesperson, right? A marketing person came in and said, oh my gosh, our gadget, our widget, our service, our technology, our storage, our processor, our API, our whatever is going to change your world and do amazing things. But then they actually undeliver on their promises. That sucks. You end up collecting things that is not really helping you out. A couple of times in my life, I have to admit, I have struggled with this next one. By a couple of times, I mean a couple thousand times, analysis paralysis. I have great ideas about what I want to do, and maybe I get down to one or two or three or four different options, and then I get stuck on which one should I pick. Option A has some really awesome options in it, right? But option B, man, it has just incredible support. Option C has kind of the best of both worlds, but it's got a higher price tag. I'm not sure what to pick. And then, of course, coming from a software development world, we developers love to build our own solutions. We like to look at the other options out there and say, A, B, C, D, forget all those, none of the above. I'm hacking my own together. I'm going to build my own solution because I guarantee you I can do it faster than our purchasing office can actually get the purchase order, or accounting department can get the purchase order created to buy that product that's really expensive. And I guarantee you that I will be a lot cheaper and can build my own thing from scratch. Unfortunately, have we really thought about the long-term ownership of this and how many hours or how many days and weeks of continual support and documentation and bug fixes and just constant tweaking on the technology, keeping it up to date with the standards as new operating systems come out, as the world constantly evolves and changes. It never ends. It seems like sometimes when we build our own solutions, that the support of that just absolutely never ends. And for me personally, I feel that all of these problems that I just ran through stem from a single overarching issue, and that is you don't have a really clear technology decision matrix or technology decision process in your organization. If you're continually seeing one or more of these problems come up over and over in your job, in your career, in the department that you work in, there's a great chance that there's not a consistent technology decision or solution decision process that's in place. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here today. We're going to break it down and talk about what are the things that we should be asking and how should we be solving this problem. So this process that I'm going to walk through, it's actually very, very simple. It's harder to do in practice, but it's easy to get started with, and it's easy to really take a look at what's going on across the department, what's going on in an individual situation and as a whole by just walking through a list of questions and asking yourself and asking your team, asking your boss, asking your project managers, asking your customers these questions. And it's 4 main overarching questions from a high-level perspective. There's a why, a what, a how, and a where. And then in each one of those, there's probably a couple bullet points that we can touch on to get into the specifics. The first question, the most important question there is in all of these problems is, why do we need it? Why do we need this technology? Why do we need this solution? Why do we need to solve this problem? And this just tears it down away from the technology. It's not about, am I implementing API number 1 or API number 2? It's not about, do I buy product number 1 or product number 2? Or it's not about what technology, what programming language do I need to invest in order to build this business solution. This really takes it back to the actual business problem that we're trying to solve. I think far, far too many times, not just in software development, but just in tech, in the tech space, and IT, and startups, and everything in general, we talk so much about how we're going to do something, how we're going to solve the problem, and we don't talk enough about why we're solving the problem. What is the benefit? What's going to happen if we do solve this problem? What's going to happen if we don't solve this problem? So question number 1 is, why do we need it? Understanding the business problem. So here's a couple of bullet points to think about in this area is, first of all, what's it going to change if we solve it? Like, what does the landscape look like today? And then if I could wave a magic wand and this problem be absolutely taken care of without any technology whatsoever, without any dollars being spent, if this problem just went away, or this opportunity was capitalized on and put in place, what would change? What would change in our business? Would it change how much money we make, like our revenue? Would it change our expenditures? Would it have an impact on how people perceive us outside of the company? Like, would it build more brand awareness or brand loyalty? Like, what is this problem, and what's the impact to our company if we were to solve it? Okay, so the second question to that, the kind of sub-question to that, is, what happens if we don't? Like, if we just completely ignore this and sit on it, what's going to happen to our company if we ignore it for, let's say, a month? Is it absolutely critical that we solve this problem this month? Is it absolutely critical that we solve this problem in 6 months from now, or in 2 years from now, or 10 years from now? What's the overall impact to the organization? What are all the impacts to the organization if we don't solve this problem? Maybe the problem that we're trying to solve is only a temporary problem because we're trying to react to something that's in the marketplace right now. But we got a feeling that other things are going to change and make it irrelevant, right? So if we're absolutely trying to implement, I don't know, push button phones, but then we know that smartphones are coming down the pipe, then why don't we just wait? What's going to happen if we invest now versus waiting? So what changes are going to happen if we solve the problem, and what's going to happen if we don't solve the problem? So again, we're trying to understand the overall impact. Now, sometimes the problem is so big that it's really hard to wrap our heads around the scope of the problem or the scope of the opportunity that we're working with. So maybe we can break it down into sub-problems. So instead of trying to solve the overall big picture, like, oh my gosh, we're trying to solve the happiness of our customers. We want to make our customers happy, and so we think investing in this technology is going to make it do that. Okay, well, what are the customers unhappy about? Or how could they be happier? Let's break that statement down, make the customers happy. Let's break that down into all the different segments. So there's probably not all customers being equal, right? Some customers bought your product or service because of feature A. Some really, really are proud of feature B. Some have different reasons for investing in your product or service. So you probably have different customer segments. So you could take each one of those customer segments and break it down into, okay, how can we make them happy, right? How can we make customer segment A happy or customer segment B happy? And they may potentially have two different solutions that are best case solutions, as opposed to what's the overall thing that I can implement, right? Do I need to implement a new CRM system because I need to be able to track my customers better so that I can eventually make them happy. I don't know. Maybe that's the right solution. Maybe it's not. But first, really, really dive down into not just what's the overall thing that I'm trying to solve, but what are the minutia problems underneath it? What are the other symptoms underneath this problem that we might be able to address? Not necessarily that we're going to address them as one-off cases, but we need to understand all the impact across the board. So that's the why. Why do we need to solve it? That's the business question. That's really the key, the most critical thing. And I feel that in the technology space, in the IT space, in the startup space, we, especially as individual contributors or line leaders just in a department of technical folks, we allow someone else to ask those questions. We count on upper management to answer those questions. We count on the project managers to answer those questions, or the business analysts to answer those questions, or the customers to just magically give us those questions without us asking. And in my experience, that may be happening, that maybe not be happening, but along the way, between the person who really, really gets it and really understands all of these questions and all of the impacts and all of the answers, and to the people actually pushing the buttons and implementing the technology and making things happen and solving the problems, many, many times there's a disconnect there, right? And so many times we water down the problem, or we have a one sentence or a one paragraph overview statement about the thing that we're trying to solve, but stuff gets lost in the messaging. Maybe the 100-page requirements document that was written a year and a half ago is not really applicable today, or it doesn't come across into a really burning, here's the thing that we're trying to solve and here's why we're trying to solve it. Here's the impact to the company if we don't solve it. So if you're an individual contributor on the team, or if you're a line leader of contributors on the team, please go through this process, both as an individual, as yourself, as well as with the entire team, of really asking these questions to everyone that you can possibly think of that's on the project, or all the customers that you're working with, about getting in touch with why we're working on this, and not just understand it from the high level. Oh, well, because they're paying us and they say it's important, and so we need to come up with a solution. No, really, really, really focus on why we're working on this and what's the impact. Because at the end of the day, you're going to find out that some things are more important than others, and it's all about learning what to prioritize. When we make a blatant statement like we're going to make the customers happy, again, if we're trying to implement a one-size-fits-all solution, what's going to happen then if we don't really understand who's already happy and who's not happy, and the people who are not happy, what they're not happy about? We're going to end up isolating people. We're going to end up fixing, quote unquote, fixing the wrong problem. And it's actually going to lead, in many cases, to a detriment in the overall situation, right? So let's really understand where the problems are and focus on like those laser specific solutions that are going to solve the right problem. Okay, so now we know what the business problem is. We've got a few more questions to ask. We know the why. We need to cover the what, the how, and the where. And we'll do that in just a moment. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Technology Thursday in our signature series week about moving your career into hyperdrive, really implementing that hyperdrive into your career spaceship. So it's going to blast off and go faster than the speed of light. You're going to make that jump to light speed. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, now Thursday, we've got 4 days of great content here for you. And we're going to keep it going tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday. Again, if you haven't listened to all these episodes or you want to get all the content that we've been talking about, all the takeaways, all the action items, all the homework, yes, there is homework for this episode, you can go to hellotechpros.com/career and get access to everything that you want. Okay, so before the break, we talked about the most critical question to ask, and that's why do we need it? Why do we need this technology? Not just why do we need this technology, but why do we need to solve this problem, this business problem that we're trying to solve? What is the impact if we do solve it? What is the impact if we don't solve it? What are all the little sub-questions or sub-problems underneath here that need to be solved? And let's really take a look at understanding those. The next major question to ask is what? What specifically do we need to solve? And when we get into this, it's really about defining out the features. Sometimes we jump into feature requirements, right? What are all the things that we need to have before we understand the why? So that's why we took a long time prior to the break to talk about the why do we need it and what's the business problem. Now that we understand the business problem, now we can focus on the what's. And when we talk about what, sometimes I've seen many cases, sometimes we have a list, just a flat bullet point list of all the things that need to be implemented, right? Here are all the features that need to be in some solution that I'm going to buy, or here's all the features that we need to have in a solution that we're going to build, or here's all the different things that need to be integrated together between these two solutions that we already own. And that list can grow so big that it becomes unwieldy. And it becomes so unwieldy that it takes like 1 million people and 1 million years and $100 million to implement. And I've seen great people, smart people have projects that absolutely tank over and over again. I've seen too many of these, especially in larger businesses, because we're throwing all of the features onto a list and we're counting them all as equal. That's not what we want to do. Not all requests, not all features, not all requirements are actually required. A lot of them are nice to haves. A lot of them are could haves. And so at the very minimum, there's a lot of different ways to manage your projects, but at the very minimum, for each one of these requirements, for each one of these features that we are thinking about having in our solution or in our product or in our technology that we're going to implement, we need to categorize them by these are the things that are must-haves. We absolutely must have them. Otherwise, we might as well not even work on this project. Like if we don't have these two things are not implemented, like if it doesn't specifically solve the problem for customer segment B on feature 2 that they are really passionate about, if it doesn't solve that, then there's no point in working on it, because that's our low-hanging fruit. That's our absolute key critical criteria back on our why, right? So we're going to relate these, what do we need to solve, back to our why, and create a diagram or a matrix or a list, prioritization of how important it is to put it in there. So number 1 are the must-haves. Number 2 is our should-haves. We should have this. We should have this other feature. We should have this other feature because it's going to make a huge impact. And if we don't have that other feature, it's going to be a huge detriment. But for maybe our first sprint or maybe for our first implementation. It's not a must-have. We don't have to have that on day one. We don't have to have that on go-live date, but it's a should-have. We should have it coming soon. If it's not in there right away, then we should have it on our roadmap. We should have it in the plan to be able to deliver pretty soon. Option number 3 is our could-haves. So these are the features, these are the pieces in our technology or in our business solution that might be able to be in there. They are nice to haves. And again, unfortunately, I've seen so many times where our could haves and our should haves and our must haves are all jumbled up together. So when your technical people are trying to solve the problem, they look at it as they're all must haves. And when every feature is a must have, your cost just skyrocketed. Your implementation time just skyrocketed. Your total cost of ownership after supporting whatever crazy solution that you cobble together has absolutely skyrocketed year over year because your could-haves were measured and weighted the same as your should-haves and must-haves. And I would challenge you to say that there's probably 80% of your solutions or your requirements that you've written down that you've gotten from your project manager or you've heard from your customers, there's probably 80% that are actually could-haves, not must-haves or should-haves. So feel free, you have my permission to go back and challenge the status quo, to challenge the project managers, to challenge your directors and leaders in your organization, to challenge your customers and say, are these absolutely must-haves or are these could-haves? Are these things that would be nice, we can brand it to the same color as the customer's portal or the customer's website? Or is that just a nice to have? Do we absolutely, is it going to be critical? If the customer can't change the button color from our built-in blue to their specific shade of green, is it going to blow everything up? Is it going to kill the whole project? No, then it's a could have. This feature is a could have. And then the last and final one that we need to be aware of and need to go ahead and put in those requirements and let everyone know and be aware is the won't haves. This will not have XYZ. This will not have these features because we understand that our competitors have these features, but we're not going to focus on them because we feel that they do not change the game. They do not add much value. They do not support the customers. They actually divert attention and divert engagement away from the core features that we want to focus on. So we're not going to implement these features, or we're not going to have these capabilities in our solution because we don't want to get people distracted by them. That's just another shiny object for them to gripe about, right? If it's not required to have electric windows in our car, we're just going to have a crank window because those electric windows, they're nice. It's very, very nice to have whenever you're pulling up to a drive-through window. But if this is a work truck and we don't need electric windows on them, then we're going to have the crank windows because it's not an option. It's just a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Okay, so that's the what are we going to solve? And why are we going to solve it? Real quickly, we're going to talk about how and where we're going to solve these, how they're going to be solved. And by how we're going to be solved, when we're talking about picking the technology, so many times, again, going back to the problems that I've struggled with the shiny object syndrome and the building custom solutions is, again, we're trying to go back to solve that real business problem. We're not trying to implement new technology because it's fun or implement new technology because we saw it at a conference or we heard it on a podcast and it sounds amazing and we want to give it a shot and we want to expand our horizons and we want to feel like we're more like an architect than we are a developer, or more like a CTO as opposed to an individual network engineer. We got to take our own egos out of this problem, right? We got to take our own egos and our own career goals, in this case, out of the equation and say, what does the business actually need? Is there something here that we could reuse? Do we already own a solution that we could repurpose and reuse in this situation? Is there already a technology here that we could reuse or repurpose to solve the same problem? If not, the next step is, can we outsource this problem? I realize that that statement sounds like heresy, and I'll probably come back in a whole another episode of Hello Tech Pros and talk about this, because I struggled with this area for so long. But I feel that if you are really there to serve the business, if you're really there to serve your clients' needs, especially if you're trying to solve problems internally inside your own company, we want to DIY it. We want to do it all ourselves. We want to be the go-to guy or the go-to girl that solves these problems and implements the technology and gets things done. But in many cases, it's probably cheaper in the long run. It's probably better for the business in the long run if we internally focus on the core things that's actually going to add the most value, and we're the critical support team in place for that. And then the other things that aren't the absolute have-to-have go-to things, can we outsource any of these nice-to-have things? Can we be the liaisons, like the person who liaisons with the business and with a third-party solution provider to implement these nice-to-have features or nice-to-have solutions in here, where we're not the ones that has to constantly maintain that technology, constantly have to upgrade it and keep it maintained? Because anytime we do that, we're actually increasing the total cost and total overhead of our IT budget or our technology budget or our whatever. And it really puts us in a bad situation, in a tough situation if we're trying to support internally too many projects and too many customizations. If we do that, we can see our internal headcount grow and grow and grow every year as we're constantly building new stuff internally, and we're not seeing the value of that support. We just know that, hey, you know what? We got to have an admin here to maintain this server, because if it fails, somebody's got to keep it up and running. All right. So what can we do to outsource that? Then the other options are to buy and to build. Right? So reuse, outsource, buy, and build. And I would do them in that order, right? What can we reuse that we already have? What can we outsource to somebody else to support? What can we buy and implement that's already like a turnkey solution, and all we need to do is just implement it into our department and turn it on? And finally, what are the things that we need to build, because those other three options don't work? And again, I know this sounds like heresy coming from a software development background. I know how important it is for us to build our own solutions. But from the business perspective, again, take your ego out of the conversation. Think about, again, back to the business's why, and understand the business problem. We should only build things when it absolutely makes sense to the business. And finally, the last question to ask is, where are we going to implement this thing? And by where, I don't mean necessarily where in the data center. I mean where in the scope of all the end users. Who is going to be working on this thing? So do we want to launch a small proof of concept, right? Do we just want to show, here is what can be done? Here is what can be done. But we're not actually going to roll it out to production. We're just going to have a small, a proof of concept, a small example project to show. Or are we going to have a pilot? And by pilot, I mean it's going to be an actual usable thing. It's going to be working and running, but we're only going to roll it out to one department. Or geographically, we're only going to roll it out to one city, right? So maybe we say we're only going to make this thing go live for the people who live in San Francisco, or the people who live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And those are the only people for this particular pilot that we're going to roll it out to. And then we're going to make some measurements, and we're going to see, do we want to cut back? Do we want to change things? Or do we want to go full scale, wide scale, enterprise? We want to go global with this thing. Is this the right solution or not? I don't know. We're going to test it out in a small subset of our customer base. The next where to implement this, of course, is production or full scale or enterprise across the board. We're going to implement this. We're going to implement this to everyone, and that's when you know that you've got a working solution, right? So many times we jump to, okay, we're implementing this to production full scale when we haven't really tested it out. And by tested it out, I mean with actual users. We've tested it in QA. We've had our own internal test teams test the functionality, but we haven't tested the usability of it and what the customers think or what the end users think of it. So we might want to go through this where to implement, kind of 1, 2, 3, proof of concept, and then a pilot, and then a production or full scale deployment when it makes sense. And finally, the last one, in some cases, it's not very many cases, but in some cases, we'll need to implement a JV, a joint venture implementation of this technology or implementation of the solution, because it just makes sense for company A and company B are trying to solve a common problem together, right? They're collaborating on a certain problem. And we need this technology or we need this solution as the intermediary between company A and company B. It might be our companies, it may be somebody else's companies, but we're trying to bridge that gap between these two companies, and neither one is really going to own it. They're not going to be responsible for it. It's going to be like a consortium of companies or a partnership of companies that's going to own the solution and drive it forward. So those are those joint venture solutions. Okay, great. So I hope this topic really inspired you to take a look at not just the potential solutions or the potential projects that are coming into your business today, but really you can use the same process to take a look at the things that are in your company right now that you guys are using. So as a person in the IT department, as a person in a technical role, I challenge you to use this process as a measuring stick and go through all the things that are on your list this month or this 6 months or this year and do some analysis and say, hey, let's go back through all these old legacy systems that we're supporting and let's ask the why. Why are we maintaining it? What is the business impact? What happens if the server goes offline? What happens if we don't upgrade it, right? And really challenge everyone to come up with the value of this technology that you've already got implemented. And then the what's and the how's and the where's. And I think that there's probably at least a handful of technologies that you can take offline that you don't have to support anymore. And that's a great thing, because if you don't have to support them anymore, that means you get to go out and solve new problems, the most critical business problems that your business folks are facing today, or most critical problems that your clients are facing today, and not worry about that old stuff. You can get rid of it. You can deprecate that legacy technology and not have the guilty feeling of, oh my gosh, we're turning stuff off that people care about. Find out what people care about and double down on those technologies, double down on those solutions. Find out what they don't care about anymore or is not a high value problem or a high value solution anymore, and put a plan in place to deprecate or to remove those solutions out. And through that process, your career is going to, again, skyrocket, because you're now this person who's not just the tech geek who wants to collect your own technology for the sake of you want to be like Batman and have everything in your utility belt. You're going to be seen by the business as a business person. There was a time in my career where I made a decision that I was going to quit my IT job and become a partner of the business. Now, I didn't tell my boss this, and I didn't tell the business this, and be quite frankly, I didn't even tell my wife this because she would have flipped out. Now, I don't mean actually quit my job. I mean I quit looking out for the benefit of the IT department, or looking out for the benefit of the software development team, and really, really put my head and my feet in the shoes of the business people and what are their problems and how can I solve those problems, and don't worry about all the technology. Is there anything that we can implement or reuse that's going to solve their problems that they don't know about, that's going to be a quick and dirty, easy win here on the tech side? And when I started doing that, man, I got so much recognition. Our team got so much recognition because we started turning things off that didn't make any business sense anymore. And we started reprioritizing our our time and our effort and our focus on the things that they cared about. And all of a sudden, they started coming to us with all kinds of things, going, Chad, I need your team to do this. Chad, I need you to work on X, Y, Z. I love this thing that you did. You guys are actually solving problems to us instead of being a cost center. And that was a huge step in my career development, and it can be a huge step in yours. So your homework for this week, your homework for this episode is to, first of all, if you're a maintenance support person, go through the list of all the technologies you support and start running through these questions. You're going to have to get other people involved and ask these questions. If you're on the new project side and your job is to implement new things that's coming in and you're already maybe evaluating new technologies or new solutions, again, go through this process, the why, the what, the how, and the where, before you come up with a solution, before you decide on a technology. And I would challenge you that if you're a technical person like me, you may be prejudiced against some tech that you already have, or for some shiny new objects that you would like to have. Please put your ego aside. Please put your put your career development stuff aside and think on behalf of the business, and that will be the thing that grows your career, not what technology can I implement. It's what business problems can I solve and who can I solve them for. All right, let's come back tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be People Friday, where we talk about people communication, and it's a huge one. It's a massive one to come in and talk about people on People Friday. It's one of the biggest changes in my career, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it because of all the struggles I've had in the past with social anxiety, right? With social anxiety, it was really, really hard for me to reach out to people because I had this fear that people were going to judge me. I had this fear that if I tried to talk to the higher ups, or I tried to get involved in a conversation in these elite inner circles at work, I would come across looking like a dirtbag. I would come across looking like a jerk who was just there trying to stick my nose into somewhere I didn't belong. And what I needed to do was just sit down, shut up, put my face in the screen, and put my fingers on the keyboard and do more technical things. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the lessons that I learned about how to break into the elite inner circles at work without looking like a dirtbag. So you know what those elite inner circles are, right? It's some management folks. It's the people that the management folks are constantly bringing to the meetings and say, hey, come to my meeting, Sally. Come to my meeting, Jesse. I need you guys here. And it's those inner circles that are always like going out to lunch together and constantly talking about what's the next thing, all the important decisions, like the adult table, right? And many of us feel like that we don't have a place at that table. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you secrets on how to break into those inner circles and how to have a seat at that table without looking like or feeling like a complete dirtbag. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And again, if you haven't signed up, go to hellotechpros.com/career to get access to all of these. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/186. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Technology Thursday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I discuss people and communication. On Saturday, we talk entrepreneurship, Sunday, being unplugged, Monday, motivation, Tuesday, productivity, Wednesday, leadership, and back again on Thursday to discuss technology once again. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.